On this Wednesday night, navigating negotiations between WestJet and its pilots. The CEO's optimism a deal can be reached.
We are working around the clock.
The fresh threat against homes in Alberta's wildfire zone, plus concerns for troops extinguishing the flames. Dire prediction about the planet.
There's no return back to the good old days.
What the next 5 years could bring. Tense night, what Harry and Meghan call a nearly catastrophic run-in with the paparazzi. And unprecedented view, the Titanic like you've never seen her before.
Global National with Dawna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Thousands of WestJet passengers are still wondering if the flights they've booked for the long weekend are going to take off. Talks between the pilots union and WestJet are still underway, but the strike deadline of 5 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday is looming. The two sides appear to remain far apart on key issues, especially wages. I'll talk to the CEO of WestJet in just a moment, but we begin with Gaviola, who has our top story tonight.
I think we have to be preparing for a very disrupted weekend and maybe a summer that will follow through as well with disruption.
New details about what's happening behind closed doors. Global News obtained a memo sent to pilots by WestJet's Vice President of Flight Operations just hours after the union issued the strike notice and the company countered with a lockout notice. It says pilots rejected total compensation of $350,000 for a wide-body captain, which make up most of WestJet's fleet, $300,000 for a narrow-body captain. It goes on to say WestJet pilots would have the highest narrow-body first officer and captain top step wage rate in Canada. The union tells Global News the figures are cherry-picked.
We have members that are first officers and captains of all levels of seniority that fly different types of airplanes, and this certainly doesn't paint the picture of all the members that we are trying to represent here.
The union says its pilots are paid 45% of the North American average. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor, the median annual wage for airline pilots, co-pilots, and flight engineers was a little more than $200,000 US in May 2021. This human resources professor tells Global News a senior captain of a wide-body aircraft at Delta can make nearly $600,000 US. He says the WestJet pilots are in a strong position given demand for pilots around the world.
WestJet is essentially reaping what has been sown in the industry more generally as a consequence of liberalisation.
Earlier this month, Air Canada pilots voted to join ALPA, the world's largest pilots union, on the heels of its successful negotiations with U.S. carriers.
The Airline Pilot Association basically concluded some 30 to 35% wage increases for U.S. carriers and U.S. pilots. So they're saying that we can probably get the same thing for WestJet's pilots.
Key issues remain compensation, working conditions, and job security. But both sides say they're committed to coming to a fair agreement in time to avert a strike on Friday. Dawna?
Okay, Gaviola in Toronto, thanks. And with me now is WestJet CEO Alexis von Hoensbroech. Thanks for speaking with us today. I know you've described the demands of the pilots as unreasonable. What are they asking for that's unreasonable?
Well, let me start from the other end. We have made a very reasonable but also very generous offer, which is basically raising their wages by a double-digit percentage and also addressing a lot of the concerns that they have. So overall, the entire negotiation is around scope, so job security, basically. It's around working conditions, and it's around wages.
Right, but you did say in a tweet that you thought that their expectations are unreasonable. Yeah,
the pilots' expectations are pretty high. So they compare themselves, so the Canadian pilots are comparing themselves to their US peers. And in the US, current pilot contracts actually pay double of what is being paid in Canada. And part of this is exchange rate, but part of this is that this is just a very different market. And they have publicly said that they would like to close this gap. And if you want to close a gap that's times two, then you can imagine how big the jump may be that will take them to where they would like to get. And that's just in this environment where we are, not a reasonable expectation that one can have.
There are two things an airline cannot do without: airplanes and pilots. We're on the eve of a long weekend, a busy travel summer. Are you really in a position to be bargaining hard with the pilots union?
So first of all, I'm here to make a deal. And the same is true for the pilot union. And we are having federal mediators here. We had the Minister of Labor here today. So we are working around the clock in this hotel near Toronto, where I currently am, in order to come up with a deal. And that's my first priority, that we can do that. And I still see a path. But I think both sides have to be reasonable and really want to come up with a deal.
And how far apart are you now?
Well, the gap is still substantial, but there's also magic of the last 48 hours, and I have a significant hope into the magic of the last 48 hours. But in the end, there are limits to what we can do. We are generous. We want to come up with a deal which makes sense for our valued pilots, but also safeguards the long-term future of our company and all of its 15,000 employees. So we cannot risk the long-term future of the company to avoid a short-term one-off cost of a strike, and therefore we have to find a resolution that makes sense for both parties and not just for one.
And what's your message to passengers who have flights booked, who are wondering if they're going to take off?
My first message is that I feel very sorry for the fact that our guests have been caught in this conflict that I think is absolutely unnecessary. My second message is I'm here to come up with a deal to protect our guests' travel over the May long weekend. We don't want to disrupt this travel. My third message is there is nothing certain in life, and while I do the best I can to come up with a deal, I can't promise that we can come up with a deal. And if labor action happens, then guest travel will be disrupted. So I can suggest that it is probably a prudent thing to do, to think about alternatives and then plan for the worst, but hope for the best.
All right. Alexis von Hoensbroech, WestJet CEO. We'll keep watching this. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you very much.
In Alberta, smoke from the wildfires is blowing south, triggering a special air quality statement for most of the province. Some evacuation orders have now been lifted. People are able to go home, some of them, but some are discovering damage and looting on their property. Neetu Garcha is in Fox Creek, northwest of Edmonton. Neetu, what's the situation there?
Yeah, Dawna, you can see the police blockade and road closure behind me here in Fox Creek. The community of about 2,000 is now in its 12th day of evacuation. Alberta wildfire officials tell us persistent hot, dry conditions mean fire activity in this area is flaring up.
In Fox Creek, long-haul drivers looking for gas along Highway 43 are turned away with few options for fueling up. Town officials say thick smoke in the area is making it difficult to monitor the wildfire's distance, but winds have pushed the flames towards the community. Heavy smoke rolled back into communities like Valley View, about 300 kilometers northwest of Edmonton Wednesday, after some clearer skies on Tuesday. In Grande Prairie, many people at this evacuation center are worried about their homes, still under threat from the fires.
There's been around 30 houses. It's not a final number. We just know 30 structures right now, could go up.
Some also lost personal belongings, not to the fires, but to looters. Alberta RCMP say new drone technology has helped lead to arrests across the municipal district of Greenview.
There have been 28 reported instances of break and enter or trespass, with 12 individuals arrested.
RCMP have also arrested one person in connection to a fire scare in Grande Prairie Monday. Large flames broke out near the hospital in what officials say is suspected arson.
There's some active investigations in regards to potential suspicious starts.
There is some good news in Drayton Valley, a town of about 7,000 where some of the residents have been allowed back home. For crews, including Canadian Armed Forces members helping to fight the wildfire near that community, burnout is a concern.
We're still finding hotspots in the area of operations pretty continuously. The challenge at this point, honestly, is there's a lot of work to do for our soldiers. And so I'm really monitoring their well-being. This is a marathon and not a sprint.
The Canadian Armed Forces, they have approximately 400 people deployed in to assist the province in their response.
RCMP members from BC, Saskatchewan and Manitoba are also in the province as the federal government looks beyond Canadian borders for further support to help protect communities like Fox Creek, still socked in by smoke.
Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair says with a significant number of wildfires also burning in BC, Saskatchewan and Northwest Territories, Ottawa is reaching out to countries who've supported Canada in the past, including the U.S., Mexico, Australia and New Zealand, for more help in a fight that could drag on all summer. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Fox Creek, Alberta.
The World Meteorological Organization keeps a close eye on weather extremes, and its scientists say the world is almost certain to experience new record-high temperatures in the next 5 years. It estimates there's a 66% chance of breaching the crucial 1.5-degree increase in global temperatures. Jackson Protzko explains what the likely consequences of that will be.
This spring has upended weather norms, shattering records for heat, drought, and catastrophic rainfall. The UN warns there's far more to come in the next 5 years, when the world will all but certainly breach an average of 1.5 degrees of warming, at least temporarily.
It's practically sure that we will see the warmest year on record during the coming 5 years.
1.5 degrees Celsius is the threshold where scientists believe the worst impacts of climate change will come into effect. It's also the target countries pledged not to exceed as part of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord.
We haven't been able to limit the warming so far, and we are still moving in the wrong direction.
Human-made climate change, coupled with a developing El Niño cycle, are responsible for pushing the planet into this uncharted climate territory. The last global heat record in 2016 was also during El Niño. But now the UN says the Earth is firmly on track to permanently exceed the warming threshold by the 2030s, unless there's drastic action on emissions.
It is an alarm bell for the planet. We're absolutely not on track to limit warming to 1.5 degrees C or less right now.
Canada could see some of the most dramatic impacts of a hotter world. The Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else, while scientists warn there's going to be less rain in places like southern Europe, where crops may wither and die.
Our climate models, computer simulations are predicting that for the future there will be less rain falling in this already drought-stressed area.
The next 5 years could bring the most dramatic and irrefutable evidence of looming climate catastrophe. The UN warns there's no turning back. Humans can only hope to limit future damage.
The best that we can do is to phase out this negative trend.
Jackson Protzko, Global News, Washington.
A Canadian man caught recruiting for an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist cell has been granted day parole. In 2014, Hiva Alizadeh admitted guilt and was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Today, in an emotional hearing, he told a parole board he has abandoned terrorism and wants to be released to a Toronto halfway house. Eric Sorensen looks at his case.
Just 2 years after Hiva Alizadeh became a Canadian citizen, he began plotting an attack on the country that welcomed him. In 2009, he went to an al-Qaeda training camp in Afghanistan, then returned and recruited 2 others. But police were tipped off, and in Ottawa and London, Ontario, they swooped in and found bomb-making manuals and other devices.
Investigators have seized more than 50 electronic circuit boards designed specifically to remotely detonate IEDs.
Wiretaps had recorded Alizadeh.
They were looking for to be part of them to get the reward of the thing of the last part of the family.
At trial, Alizadeh, considered the ringleader, admitted his guilt. Now, after serving close to 13 years of a 24-year sentence, Alizadeh's been granted day parole. In the hearing, he cried and apologized to Canadians. "I promise you, I will be a law-abiding citizen." Misbahuddin Ahmed was also convicted and paroled 4 years ago. A third suspect was found not guilty. Abby Korb, an expert in extremism, often spoke with Alizadeh when he was in prison and believes day parole is a good first step.
When I was working with him, he was well on the road to redemption. If he's closely monitored and has restrictions, then, people shouldn't be concerned.
But some are concerned that those once motivated by extreme ideology could reoffend. In a separate case, Kevin Omar Mohammed completed a sentence on terrorism charges, but after his release was arrested again with al-Qaeda literature and bomb-making manuals stored on his phone. Correctional Services Canada does not offer de-radicalization programs for those convicted of terrorist-related crimes. Programs to ensure a smooth transition back into society are what's needed, says this expert.
I think where the problem lies is in the collaboration and partnership between practitioners on ground in society and the correctional service. So there is this void.
It's a pity that we in Canada don't have that, because a de-radicalization and disengagement program can help people for when they do get out.
Experts say the corrections system needs new measures because more people convicted of extremist acts will be released in the years ahead. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
A Canadian tourist has been killed on Mexico's Pacific coast. Mexican government officials say a man was killed in a beach town in Oaxaca. Local media reports say he was found with a bullet wound in a car in a neighborhood not commonly visited by tourists. The Canadian government says consular officials are in contact with local authorities. He is the second foreign tourist to be killed in the state this week. Canadian travelers to Mexico are being warned to exercise a high degree of caution. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's push for Canada and South Korea to be BFFs. Coming up, the deals the countries just signed, plus where they don't see eye to eye. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has signed new deals on critical minerals and economic security in South Korea. The visit is being billed as an effort to step up cooperation between Canada and South Korea and reduce economic dependency on China. Mackenzie Gray reports.
A warm welcome and a selfie from South Korean legislators as Justin Trudeau made his debut in Seoul.
I am proud to be the latest Canadian to celebrate this friendship. But I'm here to tell you that it's no longer enough to be friends. We need to be the best of friends.
In his speech to the National Assembly, the Prime Minister said he took his relationship to the next level with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol.
Welcome, my friend.
By signing deals to allow an additional 8,000 young people to study and work in both countries each year, and a framework on critical minerals and energy security.
What a pleasure to see you again.
A key topic when Trudeau met with Korean executives, who hope they can replace Chinese metals with Canadian supply.
There's opportunities right now where Canada is a strong, stable, reliable partner to many, many friends around the world. It's a place where good things get done.
But outside of those two agreements, other concrete measures on how to grow their relationship were sparse. The South Korean leader saying the two countries increased intelligence sharing to their private defense industry, but wouldn't give any other details. And despite saying they're besties, there's still a major difference on Justin Trudeau's feminist-first foreign policy. Yoon has blamed low birth rates in Korea on feminism and said that systemic gender discrimination doesn't exist in South Korea, despite having the largest pay gap between men and women among developed countries. Yoon said Trudeau didn't raise the issue, but did discuss childcare and gender equality.
I did highlight that one of the most important things is to ensure that all citizens get to participate in the success of our economies.
The Prime Minister's final event in South Korea will be to walk the Kapyong Trail, the site of a key battle during the Korean War where 10 Canadians died. After that, Justin Trudeau's off to Japan for the G7. Dawna?
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Seoul, South Korea. Thanks. Damage and devastation ahead. Deadly floods drench parts of northern Italy. Some daring helicopter rescues in northern Italy today after devastating floods left at least 8 people dead and thousands of others homeless. Some areas have received half their average annual rainfall in just 36 hours, and nearly 24 towns are inundated with floodwater. Local mayors call it catastrophic. Before this, the region had been dealing with severe drought. Sunday's Formula One race in Imola has been cancelled, and more rain is forecast for the next few weeks. There's been a lot of talk today about an incident in New York City. A spokesperson for Prince Harry and his wife Meghan claimed they were involved in a near-catastrophic car chase by aggressive paparazzi.
Oh my goodness!
It's alleged it happened after the couple, along with Meghan's mother, left an awards ceremony in Midtown Manhattan around 6 p.m. last night. The three reportedly switched vehicles, getting into a taxi in an attempt to lose the paparazzi. In a statement, a spokesperson said the relentless pursuit lasting over 2 hours resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road, pedestrians and 2 NYPD police officers. There's some skepticism about that.
I would find it hard to believe that there was a 2-hour high-speed chase. The 10-minute chase is extremely dangerous in New York City. We have a lot of traffic, a lot of movement, a lot of people are using our streets.
The NYPD says there were no reported collisions, injuries, or arrests. The cab driver is quoted as saying the car was being followed, but he wouldn't call it a chase. Harry has said in the past he blames the paparazzi for the death of his mother, Princess Diana. She was killed in 1997 when the car she was in crashed in a Paris tunnel while being pursued by photographers. Titanic tour next, the first full-size scan of the world's most famous shipwreck. The Titanic still sits on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean, almost 4,000 meters beneath the surface. Now, more than a century after it sank, the first full-size 3D scan of the world's most famous shipwreck has been revealed. It was created using more than 700,000 images collected during an expedition to the site of the wreck last summer. Researchers say it's one of the first major steps to driving the Titanic story towards evidence-based research and not speculation about what happened. More than 1,500 people died when the ship struck an iceberg on its maiden voyage from Southampton, England to New York City in 1912. And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Dawna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Agassiz, British Columbia. Beautiful shot. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.